Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple of really quick tips for just tidying up the visuals on a data spreadsheet. So I've got fairly standard bit of data here, some names, math set, tutor group, some key indicators, you know, the sort of stuff you'd have. And I've got some historical data from year 7 and 8, as well as this year's year 9 data in here. And it's a bit of a mess. It's hard to read. I can't even see all of the headers across the top. And it's a bit difficult to pick out what I want. So I'm going to do a few things really quickly that make that better. First thing to know is if you click on the little triangle in the top corner and select the entire spreadsheet, then you can resize the column widths automatically super fast. Just pop the cursor in between any two columns and then double click, and it will automatically resize so that everything fits in. So now I can see everything and I can read it, which is nice. But everything is a different width. I've got some really wide columns and some really narrow ones because the titles are the biggest part of this. I can fix that really quickly. It is a lot nicer on large data spreadsheets to not have your text running horizontally but running vertically. So if I select that row by clicking on one and I go to the Home tab, then I've got this little orientation option here. If I click on it, then if I click on Rotate Text Up, it just turns it all sideways. It's still perfectly easy to read, but now because it's all pointing up, if I do the resizing of the columns again, click the triangle, double click in between any two columns, now everything is basically the same width because it's the width of the text. Obviously you get a few that are slightly wider, like the name one, and you know, if your numbers go over 100, it'll be a tiny bit wider, but essentially they're all exactly the same width now, and that's a lot easier to see and read, much better. The second thing is, I think these spreadsheets are much easier to follow if you color things in. What I typically do is if I've got historical data from previous years, I just grab those years. I've just clicked on the column letter and dragged. So I'm selecting all three of those year 7 columns. I'm just going to pick a color for them. I'll make the year 7 ones blue. I'll do the same for year 8 and I'm going to make them a green. Same for year 9 and I'll make them a yellow. Immediately it's more readable, it's easier to distinguish between things, and maybe you've got some kind of color system for your year groups. We have colors for each year group's lanyards, so you could kind of match them up, make everything even more recognizable. The next thing is, I actually don't really want to see this most of the time. I want to keep it here because I'd quite like to know that historical data occasionally when I'm digging into things, but mostly I don't want to see this, so I'd quite like to hide this, and I can do that really quickly. If I click on the first year 8 column and then right click on the letter at the top, right click on the N and click insert, it adds a column in there in between them and it automatically formats it to the left. So it's kind of giving it that year 7 formatting. And I'm going to type year 7 into this box at the top. And then what I'm going to do is select all of the data columns, not this one with the year 7 in, but all the data columns. And then I'm going to go to the data tab and I'm going to go to this one that says group here at the end. And if I click that, it groups these together, adds a little bit of extra stuff at the top, lovely big minus sign. If I click that minus sign, it just collapses all of that year 7 data down, and now all I can see is that title column, which is why I put it in there in the first place. If I click plus, back it comes. I'll just take a second to do the same thing. I'll insert a column there for year 8. Select the 3 by clicking and dragging and click group, and then I'm going to insert a column there. The reason I clicked insert instead of just typing was because it sorted the formatting and the width out, so it's made it look like the year 9 one. Obviously you don't need to, you can do that yourself. Select those and click group, and now they're all grouped, and if I'm looking at year 9 data, I can just hide away the year 7 and 8 and only focus on what I really want. And in fact, I might do that for all of this stuff as well. I might just call this maybe key indicators or something like that, and then I can select all of these and do that as well, because frankly most of the time I'm not really looking at that. I absolutely want the data to be there, but it doesn't matter if I can't see it when I'm just entering data for test scores. Suddenly all I can see is my year 9 columns. Really helpful. You might also have noticed it popped these numbers up here. They're quite handy. If you click on 1, it collapses everything, so it hides absolutely everything it can. If you click on 2, it opens everything up, so now you get to see all of the data. Just kind of handy. And if you've collapsed something and you save the spreadsheet, it saves them collapsed. So it remembers what's open and what's closed. It just makes life a lot easier for entering data and keeping an eye on only the bits you want, but having that historical record in there as well. And those are my couple of top tips for setting up a central data spreadsheet for a department.